tension, based on real events. He was 14. He'd never seen anything mystical and didn't believe in that stuff. That night he, his grandmother, and his younger cousin were all sleeping in the same room. The cousin lay to his right, grandma to his left, and above his head there was a low window looking out into the yard. He couldn't fall asleep for a long time. He pulled the blanket over himself like a little tent, put on his headphones and watched YouTube. He didn't notice how it crept toward 4 in the morning. The screen suddenly glitched and went black for a second. He pushed the blanket aside to fix the charger, looked up at the window, and froze. On the other side of the glass, very close, something was standing there. He could see the face clearly. A body like a dog's, long and thin, but the head was too dark, like a hole with black bead-like eyes. It was smiling slowly, broadly, in a way people can't. At first he thought it was his uncle with their yard dog. The outline looked so familiar. He even smiled back, confused. But the next moment he realized. The yard was quiet, no breath, no fog on the glass. The smile didn't blink or change. And the creature's height was wrong. The muzzle was higher than the windowsill. The room turned cold like a cellar. Something cracked in his headphones near his ear, and instead of the video he heard a whisper, recorded like a breath. "Open the window." He bent down to nudge his cousin, and froze. The boy was fast asleep on his right, and Grandma was softly snoring on his left. From the window came a soft triple knock. Tap, tap, tap. The creature didn't move, and the knock repeated, this time from the hallway, behind the door. Then he heard his grandmother's voice. From outside. "Grandson, open up. I forgot my keys." He turned his head slowly. Grandma lay right there, facing the wall, warm breath touching the sheet. At the window, the smile spread wider. The teeth grew longer, and something wet flashed between them. He ducked under the blanket, fumbled for his headphones, and killed the sound. A beat, silence, another beat, and a scratching ran down the pane as if a fingernail were dragged from top to bottom. Then four rasping lines, like from claws. The bed trembled slightly, as if someone leaned on the frame. "Don't look," a quiet, very tired voice whispered inside his head. "Don't answer." He squeezed his eyes shut until they hurt. Outside, laughter sounded dry, alien, like from the far end of a pipe. Then footsteps, first beneath the window, then above the ceiling, slow and unsteady, as if someone were walking where no one should be able to walk. Everything went quiet only toward morning. When they woke, the first thing he did was check the window. On the inside of the sill were narrow matte streaks, as if someone had run a damp palm along it. And on the outside, in the frost, shaky letters appeared, written from the inside out, backwards like a mirror. "Don't open." Grandma said she dreamt of his uncle in the night. He stood at the window asking to be let in, and his eyes were too black. His cousin admitted he'd seen a dog standing on its hind legs. He said nothing, just pulled the curtain tight. Since then, before bed, he always checks that the window is locked and never turns his headphones up all the way. Because sometimes, in the deepest quiet, he hears that triple knock again and a soft, patient whisper at the glass. "Open, just for a minute." Next scary story. My friend Ersan had a birthday coming up, and the night before we planned a picnic in the woods. 8 of us in all. Saturday finally arrived. We rode in on mopeds and noticed an abandoned concrete building. Inside, there were old benches already set up. Lucky us, we thought. We grilled kebabs, played volleyball, laughed, and didn't notice how fast the sun dropped. It got dark. We agreed to pack up in 20 minutes. Right then, one of the guys stepped into the trees to take a leak. When he finished, he heard a child sound, either a soft cry or a little giggle, like someone laughing into their palm. He went to check, expecting a lost kid. A minute later, he burst back to us white as chalk, stammering that he'd seen a small figure in a light sweater between the pines. A child standing face to the tree, shoulders twitching as if trying not to laugh. At first, nobody believed him, but his hair was literally standing on end and his hands were shaking. We stopped joking. We doused the fire, grabbed flashlights, and went with him. The place was empty now, only little footprints leading toward the water. When we got back near the building, our annoyance turned to dread. A child was standing by the shoreline. He was wet and strangely pale, and with one long, outstretched arm he was beckoning us closer. Mist curled from the water, though the night wasn't that cold. "Hey, do you need help?" someone called. The child pressed a finger to his lips, shoo, and leaned a little. We saw his legs were in the water up to the ankles, and beneath the surface, in the pond's black mirror, a woman's hand clutched his ankle. From the depths, among the duckweed, a white face drifted by, wrinkled, eyes open. "Grandmother?" someone whispered, not knowing why that word fit. At that moment, from inside the abandoned building, our volleyball rolled out of the darkness by itself. It stopped at the threshold as if against something invisible and softly bounced. We didn't stick around to find out who or what was there. We grabbed our things and sprinted to the mopeds. As the engines howled, the child at the water smiled, too widely, and lowered his hand. The face beneath the surface vanished, as if melting into the silt. We sped off. Out on the road, we noticed wet prints of small hands on the fender of one moped, pointing forward, as if someone had been running alongside and holding on. None of us ever went back. The grandfather always says, "In those woods at night it's safer to sing than to call, because something will always answer." Next scary story. It was back in the 90s. He was a 45-year-old trucker hauling a load along a forest highway. Winter, black ice, he drove slower than usual, radio on to keep from nodding off. Then his headlights caught a figure on the shoulder. A girl in a thin white dress, standing alone in the snow. Being a decent man, he couldn't just pass her by. He stopped, rolled the window down. "Miss, need a ride?" She turned very slowly, and he saw it. Tangled black hair, a waxy pale face, head tilted at an unnatural angle. But what froze him weren't those things. It was her eyes. Or rather, the lack of them. The sockets shone wet and empty, like ice. He slammed the accelerator. Despite the slick road, the truck lunged forward. He glanced in the mirror, and his blood ran cold. The girl was chasing him on all fours, effortlessly, like an animal, closing the distance. Her mouth was stretched into a too-wide smile. He blinked, looked again. Now there were two of them. Another glance, three. Felt like each look multiplied their number. White shapes raced along the shoulder, and through the drone of the engine he could hear a dry, hollow laughter, as if piped from an empty tube. At last, a village appeared, still the dead of night. He pulled over by a deserted bus stop and killed the engine. The stalkers seemed to have fallen behind, but the fear stuck. He grabbed a stack of newspapers from the cab and papered over the side windows, leaving only a narrow slit in the windshield. He dozed for a couple of hours. At dawn, he decided to move on. He peeled the newspapers away one by one. Silence. He tore off the last sheet and jerked back. Pressed against the glass, empty eyes were staring in. He froze, blinked, and the face was gone. Only an oval smear remained where a forehead had been, with 4 long streaks drawn downward. He didn't wait to learn more, just started the engine and sped off. Hundreds of kilometers later, he reached his apartment building. A week passed. At daybreak, he stepped onto the balcony for a smoke, looked up, and in the branches of the tall tree across the yard, between the bare limbs, the same empty eyes flashed for a heartbeat. He recoiled. When he looked again, the branches were empty, but on the balcony door a mad impression of a forehead had bloomed, with 4 thin drips, just like on the highway. Since then, he never stops in the forest, day or night, and he tries not to look in mirrors any longer than he has to. Thanks for watching. Until the next scary stories.